When I was a boy, life wasn't easy. I didn't have the luxury of dreams without struggle. Every day was a battle to survive, and every step forward felt like climbing a mountain barefoot. But looking back now, I realize those painful struggles were the greatest teachers I ever had. I wasn't born into wealth or comfort. I built everything from scratch, starting with nothing but hope and the will to fight. This is my story, how a poor boy with a broken wallet and big dreams became a businessman, carrying the weight of his family and his future on his shoulders. If you think success comes easy, let me tell you, it doesn't. But it comes to those who never give up. I remember the first time I realized that life would not be a simple journey. I was a boy of about 10 years old, sitting on the last bench in a crowded classroom. The sounds of laughter and chatter from other children echoed around me, but I was quiet, lost in my own world. Not because I wanted to be alone, but because the world I lived in was harsh and the dreams I held felt heavy. My family wasn't rich by any measure. In fact, we were struggling to make ends meet. My father had left us when I was very young, and my mother worked tirelessly as a housemaid to support me and my siblings. There was no time for games or toys. Every coin mattered. Every meal was precious. At school, I watched other children talk about what they wanted to be: doctors, engineers, pilots. I wanted those things too, but more than that, I wanted to help my family rise out of poverty. I didn't just want a job, I wanted a future. One day, as I sat outside the school gate, watching people hurry past, I noticed a man selling fruits. His small stall was crowded, but he smiled and talked to his customers like he was their best friend. That moment struck me deeply. This man wasn't just selling fruit. He was building something for himself and his family. I thought, if this man can build a life with just a small fruit stall, maybe I can build something too. From that day forward, I decided to try my luck in business. But it wasn't easy. My first job was delivering newspapers before dawn. The cold air cut through my thin clothes, and my small hands trembled as I carried bundles of paper door to door. The streets were empty, silent, except for the sound of my footsteps and the rustle of papers. Sometimes I stumbled. Sometimes I dropped the papers or got scolded for being late. But each morning I woke up before the sun, determined to earn even a few coins. I saved every penny, not for toys or sweets, but to buy small things I could sell: pencils, notebooks, cheap toys, to my classmates. I set up a small stall near the school, but many laughed at me. They called me a poor boy who thought he could be a businessman, but I didn't care. I knew the road was hard, but I was ready to walk it. One day, I lost my wallet. It was tiny, worn, and had all the money I had earned that week. I chased after it as it slipped from my pocket and flew away in the wind. I stood helpless, tears welling up, thinking how I had failed my family. But my mother hugged me and said, "Tomorrow is a new day. You will earn again." Those words stayed with me. They were not just words. They were a promise I intended to keep. As weeks turned to months, I balanced school and work. My teachers noticed my tired eyes and late arrivals, but encouraged me to keep trying. They saw the hunger in my heart, not just for knowledge, but for life. Business taught me many things: patience, trust, courage. I learned that some friends might betray you when you try to rise, but some customers will support you. By the time I was 16, I rented a small shop with the money I saved. It was old and dusty, but to me, it was a palace. I stocked products carefully, negotiated with suppliers, and welcomed every customer with a smile. But with growth came risk. I invested all I had into a new product, not knowing if it would sell. I stayed up nights worrying, but slowly, the risk paid off. Yet, the price of success was sacrifice. I missed school. I missed childhood. But I never missed the chance to make my family proud. This was only the beginning. When I think back to those early days of my business journey, the first word that comes to mind is struggle. But it wasn't just any struggle. It was the kind of struggle that shapes a person's character, tests their limits, and teaches them lessons no school ever could. After I managed to rent that tiny shop, the real work began. It was nothing like I had imagined as a child. The shop was cramped, with peeling paint and a dusty floor. The shelves were old and crooked, but it was mine, and that gave me hope. Every morning before the sun rose, I would wake up and get ready for the day. The city was still asleep, except for a few street cleaners and early risers. I would sweep the shop, arrange the products neatly, and prepare a small chalkboard with the day's offers. It was hard work, but I felt proud. The challenges, however, were relentless. I had to learn how to manage money, a skill that did not come naturally to me. I kept track of every rupee that came in and went out. Sometimes I made mistakes, and I had to borrow money from neighbors or friends just to keep the shop running. There were nights when I lay awake, worrying if I would have enough money to pay the rent or buy stock for the next day. The suppliers were a challenge too. Some of them would give me bad deals, trying to charge higher prices because I was young and inexperienced. I had to learn the art of negotiation quickly, how to stand my ground without offending them. I remember one supplier who refused to give me credit, saying, "You're just a kid. How can I trust you to pay me back?" I was furious, but I swallowed my pride and promised myself to prove him wrong. Customers could be even more difficult. Some were kind and loyal, but others tried to cheat or bargain endlessly. I learned to be firm but fair. I treated every customer with respect, knowing that good relationships would build my reputation. Balancing school and business was another battle. My teachers noticed my tired eyes and slipping grades. I missed classes when I had to open the shop early or close late. Friends invited me to play, but I often declined, exhausted from the day's work. One day, after a particularly tough week, my math teacher pulled me aside. She looked worried. "You have potential," she said softly. "Don't waste it. You need to focus on your education." I wanted to explain why I couldn't just focus on school. I wanted to tell her about my family's struggles, about the nights I stayed awake planning how to pay the bills. But the words stuck in my throat. Still, I kept going. I reminded myself that this struggle was temporary, that one day all this hard work would pay off. There were moments of joy, too, like the day a regular customer praised my honesty, or when a supplier finally gave me credit because he saw my dedication. These small victories kept me motivated. Sometimes the loneliness was hard to bear. I missed the carefree days of childhood. I missed friends and laughter. But I also knew that my sacrifices were for a greater cause. Then, a turning point came. A local businessman noticed my shop and the effort I was putting in. He offered to mentor me, teaching me about wholesale buying, managing inventory, and marketing. With his guidance, I learned how to expand my business slowly but steadily. That year, I learned a lesson that stayed with me forever. Success is not about luck or talent alone. It's about resilience, the ability to keep moving forward despite obstacles, failures, and doubts. I was no longer just a boy with a small shop. I was a young entrepreneur fighting for a better life, and I was ready for the challenges ahead. When I first stepped into the world of business, I believed hard work alone would be enough. I thought that if I just kept trying, everything would fall into place. But reality was far more complicated. Failure met me early, and it wasn't gentle. It was harsh, unforgiving, and sometimes humiliating. One of my earliest mistakes was ordering too much stock. I was eager to impress my customers, to show that my shop was well stocked and reliable. So I bought more than I could afford. But those goods didn't sell as quickly as I hoped. Week after week, boxes remained unopened on the shelves. The money I had invested was tied up, and I couldn't buy new products that customers wanted. This mistake almost broke me financially. I remember sitting in my shop late one night, staring at the unsold goods, feeling the weight of disappointment pressing down on me. I wondered if I had made a terrible error by starting this business. Would I ever succeed? Or was I just a boy wasting his time and everyone's hopes? But I realized something important that night. Failure was a teacher. I began to study what went wrong. Why didn't the stock sell? Was the pricing wrong? Was the demand overestimated? I learned to analyze my mistakes carefully, and slowly I improved my decisions. Every failure after that became a stepping stone. I became more cautious about inventory, more attentive to customer preferences, and more realistic with my financial planning. Instead of fearing failure, I started to see it as part of the journey, a painful but necessary part. Along the way, I faced other setbacks too. A supplier once delayed my orders for weeks, which left my shelves empty and customers disappointed. Another time, a trusted employee betrayed my confidence by stealing from the cash register. Each incident shook me, but I refused to give up. I learned to solve problems quickly and to build stronger systems to protect my business. Through these challenges, I grew not only as a businessman, but as a person. I became patient, resilient, and determined. I understood that success wasn't about avoiding mistakes, but about how you respond to them. More than anything, I realized that every failure brought me closer to my goals, as long as I was willing to learn and keep moving forward. Success never comes without a price. As my business slowly grew, so did the demands on my time and energy. I began to realize that running a shop wasn't just about buying and selling goods. It was a commitment that affected every part of my life. The long hours I spent in the shop meant I missed important family moments. Birthdays, festivals, and even simple dinners together became rare. My younger siblings often complained that I wasn't around to play or help them. My mother's worried eyes haunted me. She saw the exhaustion hidden behind my forced smiles. Sometimes I would come home late at night, too tired to speak, and find the house dark and silent. Those were the moments when loneliness crept in, a heavy feeling that no amount of money could erase. I struggled with guilt. Was I sacrificing too much? Was I missing the chance to be a brother, a son, a part of my family's life? But then I reminded myself why I was doing this. Every hour I worked was a step toward lifting my family out of poverty. Every sacrifice was a promise I made to them, that one day things would be better. I made a pact with myself to keep going, even when it felt impossible. I knew the journey was hard, but the destination would be worth every hardship. Sacrifice is never easy. It tests your patience, your strength, and your heart. But it also teaches you the true meaning of commitment to your dreams and to the people you love. I still remember that period clearly, when my small business began to grow beyond what I had imagined. Opening the second shop was a big step, filled with excitement but also overwhelming challenges. At first, I felt proud. This was the fruit of years of struggle and sacrifice. But soon, the weight of new responsibilities pressed down on me. Managing one shop was one thing, but two? It meant doubling the workload, hiring staff I had to trust, handling more suppliers, and keeping an eye on every detail. I quickly realized that I couldn't do it all alone anymore. Trusting others was hard for me. I worried about mistakes, about losing control, but I had to learn to delegate, slowly, painfully, but necessarily. There were moments when I stayed awake all night, worrying about finances, about the future. Cash flow became a constant concern. Bills, salaries, rent. The pressure wasn't just financial, it was emotional too. I felt torn between my dream and the reality of the risks I was taking. My family saw my stress but stood by me. My mother's quiet encouragement and my siblings' faith gave me strength. Still, I knew I had to push myself harder. Failure was not an option. There were also new lessons to learn: how to lead a team, how to handle difficult customers, how to negotiate with suppliers without losing fairness. One day, a longtime customer came and told me, "Your honesty is what keeps me coming back, even if I find cheaper options elsewhere." That simple sentence reminded me why I started this journey, not just to make money, but to build trust and serve my community. Looking back, this phase was a true turning point. It tested my resolve, expanded my skills, and shaped me into a better businessman and a more patient person. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to face it, stronger and wiser. By the time I had opened my second shop, I thought I had learned enough to handle whatever came my way. But business, as I soon discovered, is like a river, always changing, sometimes calm, sometimes wild, and never predictable. With growth came new problems. Competitors in the area noticed my success and started lowering their prices to attract my customers. It was tough. I had to find ways to keep my customers loyal without cutting my profits too much. I realized that competing only on price was a losing game. Instead, I focused on providing better service, building relationships, and offering products that others didn't have. Managing 2 shops meant more responsibilities. I had to hire and train staff, keep an eye on inventory, and ensure quality across both locations. At first, I tried to do everything myself, but soon I learned that leadership wasn't about controlling every detail. It was about trusting others and inspiring them to work with dedication. One day, a trusted employee came to me with a problem. They were struggling with their work, feeling overwhelmed. I realized that being a leader meant listening and supporting my team, not just giving orders. I began to focus more on building a positive work environment, encouraging teamwork, and motivating people to grow with the business. There were days when suppliers delayed shipments, causing shortages. Sometimes unexpected expenses drained my savings. These challenges tested my patience and resolve. But every time I faced a problem, I reminded myself why I started: to build a better life for my family and myself. The path wasn't easy, but each challenge made me stronger. I learned to adapt, to be flexible, and to never lose sight of my goals. Looking back, I see that these struggles weren't obstacles, but opportunities. Opportunities to learn, to improve, and to become a better businessman and a better person. After months of struggling with competition, managing employees, and handling unexpected problems, I slowly began to understand that running a business was about more than just making money. It was about building relationships with customers, employees, and the community around me. One of the biggest lessons I learned was the importance of trust. Without trust, a business cannot survive. Customers need to believe that you offer quality products and fair prices. Employees need to feel valued and respected. Suppliers need to trust that you will honor your commitments. I started paying close attention to how I treated people. I made it a point to greet every customer personally, to listen to their needs, and to thank them for their business. I realized that small acts of kindness and respect could create loyal customers who would come back again and again. With my employees, I practiced open communication. I encouraged them to share their ideas and concerns. I rewarded hard work and helped those who struggled improve their skills. This created a positive atmosphere in the shops where people felt motivated and proud of their work. Trust also meant being honest, even when things went wrong. There were times when shipments were delayed or products didn't meet expectations. Instead of hiding problems, I openly communicated with customers and apologized. Surprisingly, honesty often won more respect than perfection. Gradually, my shops earned a reputation for reliability and fairness. Competitors who once tried to push me out began to respect my business. Customers recommended my shops to friends and family. My employees took pride in their work and stayed loyal. Building this trust wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight. It required patience, consistency, and a genuine care for people. But it taught me that success in business is deeply connected to character and integrity. Looking back, I see that this chapter of my life was a turning point. It was no longer just about selling goods. It was about creating a community and making a positive impact on the lives of others. And that, I believe, is the true meaning of success. When my business started to flourish, it felt like a dream come true. The second shop was steady, and I was planning to open a third. Customers were happy, employees were loyal, and profits were growing. Yet, beneath this surface of success, I faced a challenge far more complicated than managing suppliers or competitors, balancing my business growth with my personal life. I won't lie, it was one of the toughest battles I ever fought. Every day was a race against time. The hours I dedicated to my shops left me drained, often too tired to enjoy simple family moments. I missed my mother's smile during dinner, the laughter of my siblings, and the warmth of being truly present with them. Phone calls with family became shorter and less frequent. There were days when I questioned everything. Was this what success felt like? A lonely road paved with exhaustion and guilt. Sometimes I felt I was living two different lives, one as a businessman building his empire, and another as a son and brother struggling to stay connected with those who mattered most. One particular evening stands out in my memory. I was closing the shop late, counting the day's earnings when my phone rang. It was my younger sister. Her voice was soft, but sad. "Bye. When will you come home for dinner? We miss you," she said. That moment hit me like a wave. I realized that no matter how much money I made or how big my business grew, it meant little if I lost the bond with my family. I made a promise to change, not by stepping away from my dreams, but by finding a way to balance both worlds. I started setting boundaries. No work calls during family dinners, Sundays reserved for family time, and small daily rituals like morning tea with my mother. I learned to delegate more in my shops, trusting my team to handle operations while I focused on strategy and family. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes urgent problems pulled me away. Sometimes fatigue won over my plans. But slowly, I saw the difference. My family felt my presence more, and the business still moved forward. This balance taught me something vital. Success isn't just about growth or wealth. It's about harmony, nurturing relationships while chasing your dreams. It's about knowing that the real treasures are the people who stand by you, not just the numbers on a balance sheet. Looking back, I'm proud not only of the shops I built, but of the effort I made to be there for my family. Because true success means nothing if you lose what matters most along the way. Not every day was bright and full of hope. Success often hides behind a curtain of failures and setbacks, and I faced my share of those dark days. There was a time when the economy slowed down. Customers became cautious, sales dropped, and bills piled up. I remember standing in my shop, looking at empty shelves, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. I was terrified of losing everything I had worked for. Mistakes were made, some in choosing the wrong suppliers, others in managing cash flow. One big shipment was delayed, and I lost a valuable client because I couldn't deliver on time. Those moments stung deeply, but failure taught me humility and resilience. I learned to accept mistakes without letting them break me. I analyzed what went wrong, asked for advice, and adapted my approach. I found new ways to cut costs, improve service, and reach customers in different ways. More importantly, I learned to ask for help. Pride often makes us try to carry everything alone, but I realized that strength comes from teamwork and support. My family stood by me during those times, offering encouragement even when I doubted myself. Their belief in me became a powerful motivator. Failures are not the end. They are lessons in disguise. They test your will, teach you new skills, and prepare you for the road ahead. Now, when I look back, I don't see failure as a defeat. I see it as a stepping stone, a part of the journey that made me a stronger, wiser businessman. After years of struggle, sacrifice, and growth, I finally reached a point where my business was stable and my family was secure. But by then, I realized something important. Success is not just about what you earn or how big your business grows. It's about the legacy you leave behind. I started thinking about the kind of example I wanted to set for my siblings, for my children, and for the community that had supported me. I wanted them to understand that hard work, honesty, and kindness matter more than anything else. So, I began giving back. I helped local youth get training and jobs in my shops. I supported small businesses in the neighborhood. I donated to causes that helped people in need. It wasn't just charity. It was a way to build a stronger community where everyone could thrive. At home, I shared my stories and lessons with my family, teaching them the value of perseverance and integrity. I wanted them to know that wealth alone isn't success. It's how you use your success that defines your life. Looking back, I see my journey not as a story of a businessman who made money, but as a man who grew through his trials, who learned the meaning of sacrifice, trust, failure, and ultimately, hope. The road was long and hard, but every step was worth it. I'm proud of where I came from, and I'm hopeful for the future. And this, to me, is the true meaning of success.